Humility and dependence on God. There are moments in life when the ground seems to slip from under our feet, when our achievements, strength, and confidence suddenly feel small. In those moments, falling to our knees is not an act of weakness, it is an act of truth. It is the moment when pride breaks and the soul finally becomes honest before God. God does not break our pride to destroy us, He breaks it to free us. Pride is a prison built from our illusions, the illusion that we control everything, that our strength is enough, that we can carry the whole weight of life alone. But once that illusion shatters, we realize something much greater. We are not alone, and we were never meant to be. True strength is rarely loud. It does not always roar in victory or shine in moments of triumph. More often, it appears in stillness, in the quiet surrender of a heart that whispers, "Lord, I need you." In that whisper, heaven hears a deeper faith than in 1,000 shouts of self-confidence. To be poor in spirit is not to be weak. It is to understand your dependence on God so deeply that you no longer fear your own limitations. You recognize that emptiness is not a curse, it is an invitation. Because God never fills what is already full of itself. Sometimes the soul must be emptied, stripped of pride and self-reliance, so that His grace can flow freely. And if these reflections speak to you, if you seek deeper wisdom, spiritual strength, and stories that touch the heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Your journey matters, and together we can walk it with faith and clarity.
Guilt can cling to the soul like a shadow, whispering that we are defined by our worst moments. But guilt is not the voice of God. It is the whisper of the enemy, the subtle lie that says we are beyond hope, beyond restoration, beyond love. God does not accuse. God calls us home. When God speaks, He does not say, "Look what you've done." He says, "Come back to me." His voice is never the weight of condemnation, but the invitation of grace. The past may hold lessons, but it was never meant to be a place where we live forever. It is a chapter, not a prison, a memory, not an identity. Grace was never meant for the flawless. It was crafted for the broken, the weary, the ones who carry unseen wounds. God meets us not at the peak of our perfection, but in the valley of our need. He sees the cracks, the scars, the failures, and still He stretches out His hand. Grace is not earned, it is given, freely and fully. Every mistake you ever made was known to God long before you took your first breath. Yet He chose you anyway, not reluctantly, not conditionally, but intentionally. Your flaws did not surprise Him. Your weakness did not intimidate Him. His love was never based on your performance, and it is not threatened by your failures. If God has already said forgiven, there is no reason to return to the old chains. The past has no authority where grace has spoken. You do not have to rehearse your regrets or replay the moments you wish you could erase. The door to the prison of guilt is already open. Walk out. Live free.
Pain is often the companion we never wanted, but somehow needed. It arrives uninvited, unsettling our plans and shaking the foundations we thought were solid. Yet pain does not come to break us. It comes to form us. It chisels away what is fragile, builds what is lasting, and reveals the strength we never imagined was within us. God rarely shapes a soul through comfort. Comfort maintains us, but storms transform us. When the winds rise and the waves crash, something deep within is awakened, a resilience, a faith, a dependence on God that quiet seasons could never teach. In the storm, we discover who we are. More importantly, we discover who He is. The question that rises in hardship is often, why is this happening to me? But the better question, the one that leads to growth instead of bitterness, is, what is this shaping in me? Pain is a teacher, not a punishment. It invites us to look deeper, trust deeper, and become deeper. Our scars, too, tell a story. They are not marks of shame, but testaments of endurance. Each one says, I passed through fire, and God was faithful. They are reminders that survival is not the end, transformation is. The scar is proof that the wound closed, that healing was possible, that God carried us through. And perhaps the most powerful truth is this: pain equips us to heal others. What once hurt becomes a well of compassion. What once wounded becomes a source of wisdom. Your story, with all its broken pieces and difficult chapters, may be the very thing that brings light to someone still standing in the dark. Pain is not the end of the journey. It is part of the path that leads us to purpose. Faith is often imagined as something bright, a confident certainty, a light that guides us. But true faith is born not in moments of clarity, but in moments of silence. When God speaks, trust feels natural. But when He is quiet, when heaven seems still, that is where real faith begins to grow. God's silence is never abandonment. Sometimes He is silent to test the heart, to reveal what we truly rely on. Do we trust Him only when we feel Him near, or do we trust Him because we know who He is? Silence becomes the place where motives are purified, and trust becomes more than emotion. It becomes a choice. Faith is a step into the darkness, taken with the confidence that solid ground will meet your feet. It is the decision to walk forward even when you cannot see the path, believing that God has already prepared it. Faith does not require full understanding. It requires surrender. It is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear define the journey. Just as roots grow in the hidden darkness of the soil, so people grow in quiet seasons of uncertainty. In silence, depth is formed. In waiting, resolve strengthens. In stillness, we learn to listen not for God's voice alone, but for His presence, the steady assurance that He is near even when He says nothing. God rarely reveals the entire map. Instead, He shows only the next step. It is His way of drawing us closer, step by step, teaching us to rely not on knowledge, but on relationship. If we saw the whole path, we would depend on the plan. When we see only the next step, we depend on Him. And sometimes that is exactly where faith becomes real, in the darkness that teaches us to trust the light. Humility and gratitude. Strength without humility is nothing more than noise, loud, impressive for a moment, but ultimately empty. Real power is quiet. It is carried by those who understand that they are not the center of the universe, who recognize that life is far bigger than their own plans and abilities. Humility is not weakness. It is clarity. It is the awareness that we don't control everything, and that's precisely why we need God. When humility enters the heart, doors begin to open. Doors that force alone could never break through. Humility softens the spirit, sharpens wisdom, and creates space for grace to work. Many people fight for opportunities with sheer willpower, but the most profound breakthroughs often come to those who have first learned to kneel. And where there is humility, gratitude naturally follows. Gratitude is not merely a polite habit, it is a spiritual magnet for blessings. It shifts the eyes from what is missing to what has already been given. It rewires the heart to recognize miracles in everyday moments. Grateful people see abundance where others see lack, and perhaps that is why blessings seem to find them again and again. It's no coincidence that the most successful people, the ones who lead with influence and integrity, are often the most grateful. They understand that every victory is borrowed, every opportunity a gift, every breath a reminder of grace. Yet humility and gratitude require courage, especially in difficult times. It takes strength to bow your head when life is hard, and even more strength to say thank you when the journey feels heavy. But those who practice both find a deeper peace than circumstances can ever give or take.
Patience and endurance. Real change rarely arrives in a flash. It unfolds slowly, like dawn creeping across the horizon, quiet, steady, unstoppable. We often hope for instant breakthroughs, immediate answers, and quick solutions, but the deepest transformations take time. Growth is rarely rushed. It is a process shaped by patience. Patience is not passive waiting. It is the active work of the soul. It is choosing faith over frustration, trust over panic, and calm over chaos. Patience says, I don't see it yet, but I believe something is happening beneath the surface. It is the quiet strength that refuses to give up even when nothing seems to be moving. Delays in life are not punishments. They are preparation. They stretch us, strengthen us, and align us with what is coming. Sometimes the door doesn't open because we are not ready to walk through it. Other times, the delay is protecting us from stepping into something too soon. What feels like waiting is often God shaping us for the very thing we're waiting for. Endurance is the ability to hold on when circumstances push against you. It is the grit to stand firm when the winds rise, the resilience to keep going when the journey grows long, and the courage to believe that the struggle has meaning. Endurance is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It turns weak roots into strong ones. All great things are built slowly. Cathedrals, character, wisdom, and dreams each require time, patience, and steady effort. Nothing extraordinary is formed in a hurry. Every not yet you hear in life is not rejection. It is preparation for a better yes. When the time is right, pieces fall into place in a way that reflects purpose, not coincidence. Patience does not delay the blessing. It shapes your soul to receive it.
Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. Fear may whisper warnings, raise doubts, and paint worst-case scenarios, but courage answers with a single step. It is the quiet resolve that says, I will not let fear decide the direction of my life. Every brave act begins with trembling hands. The step is brave precisely because fear was present. Determination is born in moments of uncertainty, when doubt tries to blur the vision, when the path feels unclear, and when giving up looks easier than continuing. That is where determination takes root. It is the force that rises not when everything is going well, but when everything feels heavy. Determination turns hesitation into momentum, and setbacks into stepping stones. Great achievements are never made inside the comfort zone. Comfort keeps us safe, but it also keeps us small. Growth requires risk, stepping into the unknown, challenging limits, daring to believe in something bigger than convenience. Every breakthrough, every story of victory, every significant accomplishment began with someone who was willing to leave comfort behind. Fear does not have to be an enemy. Sometimes fear is a compass pointing toward the very thing that matters most. Fear tends to appear in front of the paths that hold purpose, meaning, and potential. Instead of running from it, courage learns to interpret it. If this scares me, maybe it's important. Courage is the decision to step. Determination is the decision to keep stepping, again and again, especially when progress is slow. Together, they build a life of purpose. One pushes you through the door, the other keeps you walking down the hallway, even when challenges rise. In the end, bravery is not a single moment, but a series of choices, and determination is what turns those choices into a journey worth taking.
Trusting the process and your purpose. Life rarely moves in a straight line. It curves, bends, pauses, and sometimes feels as though it loops backward. Yet every turn is part of the journey, even the ones that confuse us. What looks like a detour is often direction. What feels like delay is often design. Trusting the process means believing that the path has meaning even when you cannot see the map. Human control is limited. We do what we can, we make decisions, we take steps, but the outcome belongs to God and time. Trying to force everything only exhausts the soul. Peace comes when we learn our role, to act with wisdom, to walk with intention, and then to release what is beyond us. Surrender is not giving up. It is trusting that God fills the spaces we cannot reach. Delays are not denials. They are preparation. Hardships are not punishments. They are tools that shape strength, resilience, and depth. Each struggle adds something essential to your character, something you will one day need. Challenges refine the heart for the future you're meant to carry. Purpose does not arrive early. It comes when you are ready, when the foundation inside you is strong enough to hold it. Sometimes the path feels slow because your soul is still being built. The timing is not random. It is intentional. The hardest part is staying faithful when no visible results appear. But the unseen seasons are often the most important. Seeds grow underground long before they break through the soil. In the same way, the process forms the character that your destiny requires. If reflections like this help you find clarity, strength, and direction, I invite you to subscribe for more thoughtful and inspiring messages. Your journey matters, and you don't have to walk it alone.